Okay, so picture this. You recently become the fire god and keeper of time for the Mortal Kombat universe. Because you're bored and you want to see some action, you summon every single Mortal Kombat guest character into one single arena. Of the 14 guest characters, who's the last one standing? Let's find out together.
Fight! Fight!
Good morning, afternoon, and evening everyone. Nick here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do something quite interesting today, and that's a fun little discussion covering all MK guest characters. As of June 2024, Homelander is the latest character to join the MK universe, with rumors of another guest character joining us in a future season. So for now, I'll be looking at the 14 guest characters who have entered the MK universe and to determine who would win in an all-out battle royale. First thing I'd really like to get out of the way. First things first, I'll only be looking at their in-game portrayals. I mainly want to look at what MK brings to the table with each of these characters, as if I were to deep dive and do everything covering their source material, their multiple adaptations, timelines, and etc., this could take hours to examine. That doesn't mean I'll be treating every single character as just a guy but acts like this specific guest character. I'll also be including certain moments or references that have been said in either intro dialogue or in their in-game bios to understand more of their character, such as how some characters are referencing one specific set of games or come from one specific movie timeline or rights. It's a lot to break down. I will refer to the source material from time to time, mainly to look at specific strengths and feats that they have accomplished based on the version Mortal Kombat has adapted. Also, I know that some of these characters have insane arsenals. I want to simplify it and only showcase what the Mortal Kombat team has brought to the table. Whatever they bring to the ring is fair game. Also, I am not going to be basing this like a tier list. I'm not basing off their combo abilities or frame data, so that won't be a factor here. Don't worry about that. I'll also explain my reasoning for each placement, sharing their strengths and their weaknesses. Lastly, this is just for fun, so please don't threaten me or my cats' lives, got it? I'll be going in order of some categories, which is first to fall, would die early, survive for a while, then fall, the few finalists, and then the last one standing. Without further ado, let's summon our fighters and see who will make it out on top. Making our way into the first to fall category is the Ed Gein inspired slasher from Texas, Leatherface. Unfortunately, I feel he has the worst chance of surviving this royale. In a world full of one-man armies, unstoppable slashers, so-called gods, and literal gods, this guy is literally just a dude with a chainsaw. He could get a good hit on someone, but since his strategy is just relying on him overpowering someone who is unarmed or even afraid of him, but many of these fighters he's going up against are either superhuman, act superhuman, or are nearly unstoppable. Unfortunately, this Texas chainsaw wielder is about to have a real massacre in this one. Now we are moving into the would die early category. Despite them being an awesome character, I honestly think the alien or xenomorph would die early in this case. Sure, the Mortal Kombat team made the xenomorph very unique by making it a breed of the Tarkatan or being a hive that has taken over Outworld, but I feel they still function the same as regular xenomorphs. They're more overwhelming in a swarm of xenos, but in this game it's more of a one-on-one fight. Many of the characters, or guests in this case, are well armed to take on a xenomorph and they die very easily in their respected media. Now you could make the case that being a Tarkat variant of this would make it more deadly, and I do agree with you there. Sure, I think having Tarkatan blades makes it more deadly, but too many of the characters have a lot of long-range weapons to make it not really matter that much. They're playing keep away against the xenomorph. Looks like the xenomorph is eliminated in this bug hunt. Yet another surprise following up another iconic slasher is another iconic slasher with Freddy Krueger. This one is not only based off of the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot from 2010, but they established something very unique with this version of Freddy. In the official vignette for this game, Freddy is pulled from the dream realm and put into the real world, making him mortal once again. And similar to the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, when you bring Freddy into the real world, it is very easy for him to die. But I will say they did make it a little bit more unique with Freddy and give him some of his powers, such as using the weird finger hands from A New Nightmare, his weird dream drops to make people go unconscious for a couple seconds, and his weird knife hands that he can stab into the ground ground and stab the opponent from afar. But unfortunately, Freddy is not a strong guy. He's pretty small and scrawny. In the real world, I don't think he'll last long. Guess you can say in the real world, Freddy is living a real nightmare. Comic book fans can get mad at me right now, but up next on the list is the Joker. Sure, he is very unpredictable with his crazy kooky weapons, including some boxing gloves, a plushie of Batman strapped to a gun, and an endless amount of hostages he has that he can just use as explosives or combo extenders. I don't think it's enough to overwhelm the set of guest characters remaining in this royale. I know he also does rely on manipulation to get the better of people. I don't think many of them could be reasoned with. If anything, if you were to insult Homelander, it would just make him more insecure and you just want to kill Joker faster. Now, I'm not saying that he would be completely useless. I think he would be a huge surprise and a huge obstacle for many. To be fair, he's traded blows with Batman, but more of these killers have a killer edge. Sadly, we're bringing the clown down. Okay, moving on to our next category, survive for a while, then fall. Honestly, this one was really hard to pinpoint and put together, as, spoiler, it would remain all but 4 of the guest characters here. Deciding who would live and who would die in this order is really hard to determine. It really coming down to their arsenal, their durability, and their skill. Now, just because one is low doesn't mean that they're weak. I think all of these characters are extremely powerful in their own right. I just think this is the order they would go out in. Many of these characters would last a while. I just want to get that out of the way before we continued. Now moving on to the first in this category. Huge surprise to me, but I'm gonna say it goes to Jason Voorhees. Yes, I know it's a huge surprise. Legends may say that Jason is unstoppable and unkillable, but that's not really true. Rumors have gone out saying that this Jason is actually their own original one because there was a canceled Friday the 13th movie this was based off of, so I guess we can just kind of go with an umbrella rule with this version of Jason. The biography is extremely vague too, not really telling us which timeline this takes place in, and a lot of the things that he pulls off are references to multiple timelines of Jason, both the New Line and Paramount eras. But from what I can confirm from all of these timelines, Jason has definitively died multiple times. Jason is extremely powerful if he gets in with either his bare hands or his machete, or if he just wants to throw it at you and lodge it into your chest. It's also nice that he has the ability to stick around a little bit longer before they think they die. Just a lightning strike and boom, he can keep fighting for one last little bit. Really pulling a TJ combo with that right there. But I will say I do think the guest characters have enough in their arsenal to take Jason down permanently. Hell, all it took in part 4 was just a machete lodged into his head and then just being chopped multiple times. And even in Jason Goes to Hell the Final Friday, it took an entire firing squad and a grenade to blow him up. I mean, think about it. John Rambo literally has the entire arsenal to take down Jason one-on-one. Not to say it would be easy, it would be very challenging. As I've said before, Jason is nearly unkillable. But I do think that this entire set of guest characters can disprove that theory. This Crystal Lake killer is sleeping at the bottom of Crystal Lake with the fish. Up next on our list, and this one was really hard to debate, but at the end of the day, I decided to put Peacemaker here. Now, I'm really only knowledgeable with him when it comes to the TV series and the movie, which is actually what this version of the character is based off of. And I know he does a lot of kick-ass things in the show and the movie, but what he brings to MK kind of puts him at a deficit. Sure, the one surprise element he has is his helmet, with MK's ability to make him either levitate and do a drop hit, do a sonic boom, or torpedo dash at people. He has a pistol that's pretty fine, honestly, and Eagly can help out a little bit. Because of his helmet and the amount of powers that come with it, I thought he would be able to outlast many of the other characters, either being able to put on a force field to keep himself protected for a while, or be able to torpedo dash through some of the weaker fighters. Unfortunately, I do think he would get overwhelmed over time. And yes, people like Young Bucky69 have stated that you can't see Peacemaker, but I don't think that'll help him in the long run, unfortunately. From one soldier to another, the next to fall is John Rambo. Now, you may be surprised that a normal human would be able to last this long, but if you know who John Rambo is, you know he's a one-man army. Literally packing heat with multiple LMGs, a combat bow with explosive tips, multiple traps to throw people off, stealth opportunities, and his signature combat knife. For being just a guy, John Rambo really has many opportunities to throw people off and many ways to mix things up. And since this is based off the original trilogy Rambo, he clearly has all of the strength and experience to take on many of these fighters. And if you were to ask me, many of the unpredictable ones like Peacemaker. But unfortunately, I don't think he'll have enough supplies to last until the very end of the fight. I'm surprised he made it halfway through the list against many of the guest characters we're going up against. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, he's a man, not a god. Come on, comrades. Okay, I really had to throw an Angry Joe reference right there. You may say nothing is over, but unfortunately, it's over for you, John. on. From one 80s icon to another, the next one on our list is the Terminator. Though he has the lightest arsenal of the characters we've seen so far, outside of Leatherface with his chainsaw and his cattle hammer, Terminator's mainly just rocking a shotgun, a grenade, and some teleportation powers, but he makes up for it with extreme durability. Based off the Terminator trilogy, including Terminator, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and Terminator Dark Fate, he's packing a metal endoskeleton, which you can easily hear every time he strikes the opponent. It's gonna hurt like a bitch. On top of it, he's extremely mobile with his sprint ability where he can tackle the opponent and stomp on their scongeelies. His strength, speed, and durability will last him quite a long time. He'd be able to withstand anything that the previous fighters could throw at him, but unfortunately, the remaining few that we do have left have the capacity and firepower, literally and figuratively, to take the Terminator down. Sorry, Arnie the Governator, I guess you've just met your own dark fate. The second to last of the final characters in this category is the Yautja Hunter, I don't know how to pronounce this, Predator. The ultimate hunter would definitely last a long time in this battle royale. Huge factor being what the MK team let him bring to the tournament, specifically key items from Predator 1 and 2. Predator has his spear, he has a smart disc to throw you off, and he has his wrist blades so he can stab people, throw them around. Along with that, he's got camouflage, you know, something that many people would not see coming. And when you throw in the variations, geez, he's got a lot to work with. He has his plasma caster with his Hishkaten variation to shoot people from a distance, his hunter variation giving him the ability to lay down traps which can actually skin people, or if he's damaged, he can definitely heal himself with his medicomp. And lastly, he can lay out some solid damage with the warrior variation by getting up close and using his wrist gauntlet to have some explosives go off. And if he really wants to end things quick and get rid of a big threat, he can at least try and use a self-destruct to get both of them. A skilled hunter indeed, but I do think that he does get slightly outclassed with the final few. And unfortunately, no, I'm not going to be going off of his ending from Mortal Kombat X, where he learned sorcery after stealing Quan Chi's amulet. Definitely would have been awesome if there was a sorcerer variant somewhere in there, similar to doing something like Tarkat Alien. For how far he made it, he definitely made his tribe proud. Way to go, ya ugly mofo. And the final person in this category is the one who protects and serves my hometown of Detroit, RoboCop. For being slow and clunky, RoboCop is built like a tank and would definitely last quite a long time. You'd think he'd just be a dude strapped with a gun, but this dude's got a lot more than that. For those that get in too close, he's got a flamethrower, he's even got his riot shield to block out a lot of the projectiles, a shock grenade to keep people stunned and on the ground, his secret knife inside of his hand, and the best weapon in his arsenal, the Cobra assault rifle. Literally a rifle that shoots tank rounds and can blow people up. On normal humans, it's able to obliterate them in one shot, and he can shoot this multiple times as it carries multiple rounds. So imagine what he can do on unstoppable slashers like Jason Voorhees, literally blow him to bits like at the beginning of Jason Goes to Hell, or enough to overwhelm Rambo. Or if he really wants to, he can use a short circuit to stop the Predator from cloaking. Honestly, RoboCop is able to last quite a long time in this tournament. Gotta give it up for the guy. But if you may notice at the end of some of his victory poses, he does need to recharge as he doesn't actually last super long. So either it's gonna be he's gonna be overwhelmed by some of the other fighters, or he's gonna run out of battery and then he'll be a sitting duck. But I think he'll act like the Energizer Bunny and will be able to last quite a long time, actually making it into the top 5. Thank you for your cooperation, RoboCop, and good night entering the top 5. Alright, we're entering our final category with the Few Finalists. In the top 4 here are the most superhuman and godlike characters to enter Mortal Kombat. Personally, it's hard to determine who would live or who would die because of how busted they are, their weaknesses can't be easily exploited, or many of the other guests we've seen can't really overpower them. However, these final 4 I feel are strong enough to take each other down with whatever they brought to the MK universe. Before we get into the final 4, please consider dropping a like and subscribing. It really means a ton to this channel. Also, put a thumbs up emoji if you made it this far. The first one on Few Finalists to fall is Homelander. Sure, he is the world's greatest superhero, brought to you by Vought, super like Superman, and to borrow an analogy from Death Battle, he's a big fish in a small pond. Sure, he has powers of flight, extreme strength, and laser vision, but the other 3 fighters are pretty familiar with people like Homelander. On On top of that, he's never really had to push himself or train to be a better fighter, as he was always a strong guy in his universe. Sure, he could use his laser vision to hurt people like Omni-Man. It wouldn't be enough to keep him down if he would be able to actually land a hit on him. And fighting people with godlike weapons like Kratos and Spawn, he doesn't really have a defense to protect against something like his soul, which would be hard to hit because he's already soulless. So fighting a Viltrumite, a god of war, and general of hell's army really isn't going to help you. It'll be just as easy as running a marathon on your hands. It's really not going to be that easy. But everyone else we've seen on this list, he could easily overpower with no problem. People below RoboCop really do not stand a chance against him. All three of the final fighters just outclass Homelander, and with that, Homelander has been fought out. Now the final fighters we're going to be looking at are all extremely close, so I'm going to discuss each of their strengths and weaknesses leading to a final decision. Starting off with Kratos. Kratos, the God of War, was Mortal Kombat's first guest character. Meant to promote the God of War 3 installment coming out, they heavily influenced off of that version of the game. Easy to tell because his intro is dialogue literally ripped from the final fight against Zeus, and a lot of his special moves are just weapons you can use in God of War 3, but not all of them. The featured weapons are the Bow of Apollo, the Nemean Cestus, the Head of Helios, his Golden Fleece, the Blade of Olympus, and his iconic Blades of Chaos. With these weapons, he's easily able to dominate the entire lineup of guest characters, easily being able to kill many of them quite easily with just a single swipe, be able to reflect many of the shots with his Golden Fleece, or be able to burn many of them to a crisp with the Blades of Chaos, or even blind many of them with the Head of Helios. Since this is canonically the God of War 3 one, not the rebooted one from 2018, this is the one that was able to take down the gods of Olympus, making him one of the strongest guest characters that has entered Mortal Kombat. And if you want to talk about strong, let's talk about our next one, Omni-Man, the Viltrumite from the Invincible series. This, not Superman, is an absolute powerhouse. Lifted from the Invincible series, he portrays a lot of the things that he has done in the show. For one, he's able to fly insanely fast, being able to fly around the world instantly, being able to dash fast enough that he's able to literally turn them into paste, immense strength to literally slam someone into the ground and their head explodes, strong enough to clap the skin off people's bodies, and is even able to evade a lot of incoming projectiles and even some strikes. And on top of that, he's got an insane healing factor. But he is not, like the title, invincible. Along with that, Omni-Man has thousands of years of combat experience, so he's definitely going to be no pushover. So strong that he was able to kill the Guardians of the Globe. Spoiler to people who haven't watched the show. But for how insanely powerful he is, he does have a few weaknesses. That being extreme heat, that's similar to the sun, meaning that they will be able to burn away. And on top of that, there's also the high frequency. So if something extremely loud, like a voice crack of mine, was able to break his equilibrium, he's not going to be able to fly anywhere. And on top of that, and probably one of the weirdest ones, is if any explosion is inside of him, which he's extremely vulnerable to. Such examples from MK fandom include ingesting a bomb and having it detonate, which can kill Viltrumites. Despite that, he's definitely one of the strongest characters in Mortal Kombat. Come into contact with Omni-Man, just don't bother. You're definitely gonna lose, and you may have to think about it. And last of the three is one of my favorite comic book characters, Spawn. General of Hell's army, this dude literally has powers of hell. Though hard to adapt from the comic books, they do a good job adapting what they can in MK11. Though it's kinda hard to judge which version of Spawn this is primarily the comic version. So none of the weird stuff that was introduced into the Spawn movie with Michael Jai White. And with the comic version, probably the deadliest version of Spawn we could imagine, being his necromagic with the green fireballs, using the chains which can easily pierce inside of the opponents, and having the ability to transfer necro energy into them, making them explode from the inside. He also has the ability to summon Hellfire, a war club and sword, and he even has his living cape, which can easily strangle the opponent and put them in uncomfortable situations. On top of that, he's got chains that come out of his body which are actually fast enough to block bullets and can react on their own. Along Along with that, a cool nifty thing that his suit can do can feed off the sins of his opponents that he's fighting, which makes him much stronger. On top of all this awesome necromagic, Spawn also is packing heat, quite literally, with guns. To reduce using his magic powers because he is limited, he does use guns because he was a Special Forces agent, literally packing some assault rifles, being able to just summon and just fire at will. On top of that, his Fatal Blow sees him summon a giant array of guns to come out from his cape and fire at the opponent. Good luck dodging that. And since this is based off the comics, some of his strongest feats include dethroning both Satan and God. Yeah, so this guy is insanely powerful. However, for how powerful this character is, he does have a few weaknesses that can really hinder and slow him down. For one, holy weapons and decapitation are his biggest weaknesses. Along with that, he can't use too much of his necromagic as he will be sent back to hell, and he will be grievously injured if he's torn apart. And if there's one big thing you can take away from this, fighting Spawn is one hell of a task. Okay, now that we've talked about the 3 finalists, let's kind of break down where I think they will stand by the end of this, along with what some of you have said in the comments leading up to this. After reading many of the comments and after doing my own research with these characters, here is the final conclusion I have deduced. Taking the 3rd spot of the finalist will go to Omni-Man. For being a not Superman, he can be destroyed because of their arsenal. As mentioned earlier, Omni-Man is extremely weak to immense heat, so weapons such as the Blades of Chaos and Bow of Apollo could overwhelm and really hurt Omni-Man really good. Along with that, Spawn has a lot of good ways to get inside of his body and use some explosives to kill him with either his magic or his arsenal. On top of that, Spawn has plenty of good ways to get at his soul, which could kill him. Now, Omni-Man wouldn't go out without a fight, but he would be able to hurt them both plenty. He could definitely outclass them in strength, but when it comes to powers and abilities, I do think they could overwhelm and actually have the ability to kill Omni-Man. In the end, this Viltrumite warrior will go Viltra Night-Night. Now, when it comes to Kratos and Spawn, with Kratos' skill and his power, along with his crazy arsenal of weapons from gods, really only a handful of his weapons could actually hurt Spawn or exploit his weaknesses. Sure, the Olympian-based weapons could hurt Spawn really good, but none would be able to take him down permanently. Sure, his wide array of weapons from God of War 3 and from the new rebooted games could put an end to Spawn. None of the weapons he brings to Mortal Kombat could really put a finishing blow onto him. That's not to say that he's a pushover. He could easily stomp out the entire lineup of guest characters, and he would have a lot of counters against some of Spawn's arsenal. Pretty much all of Spawn's guns wouldn't be that effective on Kratos, especially with his golden fleece. It would definitely be a close fight between the two, but I want to say that the General of Hell's army, Spawn, gets the W at the end. So after all of this, who is the real victor at the end? Well, after much time debating and breaking down everything, it's you, actually. Remember what I mentioned at the very beginning of the video saying that you were the fire god in this scenario? You can actually just delete all of these characters if you wanted to. No one's able to counter any power that you have as a fire god. So there you have my fun little breakdown of every single guest character fighting in a fun little battle royale, seeing who would live and who would die in which order. Now I know we're not going to agree on this entirely, but I would love to see where you're coming from. This was a fun little idea I had floating around in my little brain that I thought would make for a fun video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, and share for more. Next time in the channel, we're bringing back All Costumes Ranked, covering the champion to Fire God, Liu Kang. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Nick, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Fight!